We are here today with Ernest Stalberte, the founding member, one of the founding members of the collaborative. Today we want to talk about the disparity study, and I want to start from the very beginning on this because we have a lot to get to on this issue.
Sure.
Talk about what is the disparity study?
The disparity study is a study and analysis of economic and financial disparities in a particular community. This particular disparity study focuses on the city of New Orleans contracting spending for contracts and for professional services. It was theoretically supposed to cover a 5-year period of time. The actual study came out and covered a 3-year period of time, 2014 through 2016.
And so the results are out?
The results are out, and it's really important that our community hear the results, understand the results, and then take those results and turn those results into action. The Supreme Court in 1979 ruled that a city or a entity can make changes in their contracting spending programs if there is, quote unquote, a compelling interest to do so. Well, you can't just say you have a compelling interest, even though we all know it, you have to prove it. And the disparity study is that tool that proves to the federal government and to the community what the compelling interest is and what the disparity is.
And what we've come to find out is that opportunities for minority and or female businesses are not getting their equal share of the pie, correct?
That is the compelling data that is being presented. Without a doubt that the African American community in particular and the minority community in general is not receiving nearly an appropriate share of the business. The study basically indicated that 92% of the commercial business, the non-city business, is going to white construction firms, and 68% of the city's business is going to white construction firms, both male and female. Literally saying only a small percentage is left for minorities to share. And even when you dig down deeper into those numbers, there's some anomalies that make it even worse than it seems.
So what are your thoughts on these findings and these statistics?
My thoughts is, first of all, that we're pleased with the study to a point, and that point is that it does, according to the law, show a compelling disparity in the minority community. It is very compelling. There's no argument about it. Of course, we know it. We live it every day. But according to the law, you have to prove it statistically, and this is what's being done with the study.
So maybe the results, maybe not so much reflective of the reality of what's happening with DBEs in our city?
Absolutely, because there is a common perception that DBEs means African Americans, and it absolutely does not. There's a sizable percentage of disadvantaged businesses that are white female. They're receiving a disproportionate amount of business based upon their numbers. They are about, according to this study, 9% of the DBE population. They're receiving 14% of the business. We are in our study believe that many of those white female DBEs are not disadvantaged. They may be a specific protected group, but they're not disadvantaged. But nevertheless, they're receiving 14% of the business. The African American companies, according to the report, and again, this is only a 3-year snapshot, and we have issues with that because we've been in this city doing business for 300 years. We're about to celebrate our 300-year anniversary. We've got 3 years of credible data. That is horrible, and I think that's also by design. Nevertheless, the African American community, according to the study, received 29% of city contracts between 2014 and 2016. The story that's not being told is that of that 29% that the African American business community is receiving, almost 80% of that number went to a few firms. So there's no wide distribution of income, no wide distribution of contracts in City Hall throughout the greater community.
This is not the first time for this study, even though it's a short span of time that we're talking about. This study was done 21 years ago. What has happened from then to now?
Interesting enough that the study was in place 21 years ago. The city leaders at that time put in place a set-aside program, if you will, or a inclusionary program to ensure that the minority community would receive their fair share. And for some period of time, they did. When Harris Casino developed this casino, they were mandated to hire so many people all throughout management, to hire so many contractors that were African American, and to spend so much money in the community. And they did that, and we felt like it was taking root. However, the city leaders did not renew the disparity study at that time. It should have been renewed every 3 to 5 years. If you're going to measure progress of something, you have to measure it over a period of time. Because the study was not renewed, there was a group, I believe called AGC, that sued the city to dismantle the programs because they didn't continue measuring the program. They didn't continue the disparity study, and it was abolished at that point in time. So for 21 years, we have not had a study. For 21 years, we have not had a real system of inclusion. For 21 years, we have not been measuring the progress. And that's where we are today.
And so Mayor Mitch Landrieu, as we know, has spoken out about this, on this topic. He said, I'm not quoting, but along the lines of, there is still work that needs to be done. What are your thoughts on what the mayor said about the study?
The mayor said that the study reviewed that the playing field is still not level. That's absolutely true. But that's just a general statement. The mayor didn't go into the details. In fact, African American contractors, which was not stated by the mayor, have a capacity to do over 27% of the contracting work, but we're receiving 11% of the work. African American contractors is receiving less work than the white female DBEs. So from a contracting standpoint, that's a horrible statistic, especially when you consider all the money, all the billions that have been spent in New Orleans to rebuild the city. We built new libraries, new public facilities, lots of construction have gone on because of Hurricane Katrina, and we've only received 11% of that, and that's a horrible statistic. But it does make a compelling case for changes and improvement.
One thing that's important is you then, with the study, went and summarized their findings.
Yes, we did. The Collaborative, which is an organization of local small business firms who have come together over a 5-year period of time. First of all, we initiated getting the study done. We went to the mayor, we went to the city council, we went to every city council budget meeting in their area and lobbied for a disparity study. And the reason we did that is because, first of all, there was $500,000 rather, set aside by the city in their budget to do a disparity study. It was there the moment that the mayor, Mitch Landrieu, became the new mayor. It's been sitting aside for 6 or 7 years. So we forced them and lobbied for them to do a disparity study because we realized that that was the vehicle that we needed. We needed a quote unquote, and this is the Supreme Court's term, a legally defensible mechanism to make the type of changes we needed to really move the needle on these economic disparity issues.
And so as a result, what's happening to small businesses? What's happening to minority businesses? They continue to struggle.
They continue to struggle a great deal because they don't have the resources to compete. And one example of that is that in today's current contracting environment, a small firm has to bid against giant firms for a contract. There's no reason why a small firm who may have an annual income of $1 to $2 million have to bid on a contract against a giant firm. So those kind of things, as well as the loan denial rate of 51% for African American firms, all these things hamper small firms from getting businesses and from being competitive.
Okay, so at the community meeting, who will be there to receive what the community has to say?
The contractor who originally did the study, Keenan Associates, they will be there to take in the public comment. The public comment is a matter of official record, so they will take in the public comment and integrate that into the final study as it comes out. The City of New Orleans will have representatives there as well. The collaborative certainly will be there, and the rest of the community as well.
Where do we go from here?
Well, where we go from there is once the study is finalized, the collaborative has a committee called Best Practices, and that committee is searching the entire country for what are the best practices that is employed in contracting that we can now bring to New Orleans, make a recommendation to the new administration, and encourage them to include those best practices in the city. I'll give you some examples of what those are, such as unbundling of contracts. Every contract does not have to be a 25, 30, or $40 million contracts. They can unbundle some of the scopes of work to allow smaller firms to compete at it. They can also group small contracts, say $5 million, $3 million, $2 million contracts, and say only small firms can bid on these contracts. Larger firms that are multi-billion-dollar firms can't bid on these contracts. It's perfectly legal, and it's only an example of some of the things that we have to do to have some real movement here. Lastly, and this is not a total list, but we have to find a way to address the issues of access to capital for our small firms and the bonding issue, because every public contract requires a bond if the contract is over a certain dollar amount. These are some of the things that we've got to do in the new administration, but we've got to do it aggressively, and we've got to do even more.
And in addition to that, prompt payment requirements, we have to talk about that, and also advance to certified firms for contract mobilization. I mean, so there are several things that we need to really hone in on and focus on.
Yeah, the items that I mentioned is not a comprehensive list, and again, we're looking for what are some of the best practices, which may ultimately be a whole host of recommendations and new programs that may need to be put in place to help support our small business.
Well, there's a lot of work to do. We've come a ways, but still a ways to go. Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, Ernest Stalberte, founding member of the collaborative. We thank you for your insight and for your analysis on this.
I thank you for giving me the time.
Thanks so much.
I appreciate
you.
Sure.